Deena Metzger. Please stay seated. So many beautiful faces. Deena and I were at an event that she was invited to do a talk yesterday afternoon at the Temple Beth El. And she took out her drum. The first thing she did was drum. And it was such the right way to do what she said next she wanted to have happen, which was that the gathering and the time together would matter. That's kind of the whole thing. May what we do today matter. May it fill us up. May it fill spirit. May it feed the spirits. I'm Carolyn Brigit Flynn, and I've known Deena for 36 years. I met her when I was 31. And so she's been my teacher and lead and guide for so many years. And she finished a book during the pandemic called VIEJA, A Journal of Fire. And it came out during the pandemic, so she didn't have any live readings. She did do online readings. So in my mind, I'm thinking she needs to have a live reading for this amazing book she's just written. There you go. And then in December of 2023, she reissued What DINAH Thought. So here are two books. Here's La Vieja, and here's What DINAH Thought. So she reissued this book, which in 1989 looked like this. This is what my copy looks like. Sorry. Which is set in Israel and Palestine. And it is a love story between an American Jewish woman and a Palestinian man, retelling an ancient myth. So she reissued it with the hope that telling an ancient story that is perhaps part of the ongoing cyclical violence could insert some love into the story and perhaps start to change it. So suddenly it seemed like, okay, you've got two new books that we need to honor, and maybe they don't go together at all, or maybe they're exactly go together. One is about the earth and the environment, and one is about war and undoing war, all the same question. You'll see, she'll talk about all this. And when we put this together, which was about 7 or 8 months ago or more, maybe Kamala Harris was going to win. We had no idea where we would be on this day. None. And even on the election day, I don't think many of us knew where we'd be on this day. So I just want to name the brokenheartedness of myself and so many of us right now. And when I notice when I'm in Deena's presence, I feel my essence more, so I have been near tears for a couple of days. Because that's the life we're in right now, and that's not inappropriate. And then it's good to be in love together and in our tears together. So that's what this day ends up being, right? We're all brokenhearted. And we welcome our elders who've been telling these stories for so long and ask them to be with us. So I'm so happy to welcome Deena Metzger. She's going to start by reading from What DINAH Thought.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being present in these times. So this book was published 34 years ago during the time of the First Intifada. And earlier in the 80s, someone had asked me if I knew the biblical story of my name. And I began reading the book, the little Old Testament that my father had given me when I was a child. And I came upon a reference in the glossary of biblical terms, which is an epigraph to the book. And it said, Dinah, the daughter of Jacob by Leah, was ravished by Shechem, a Hivite. For that reason, and with the help of a peculiarly low cunning, Shimon and Levi, Dinah's own brothers, revenged the insult. What Dinah thought of the whole matter is not recorded. So, what Dinah thought. In that sense, the book was given. It wasn't something I chose to write. It was given to be written, and I had a spiritual obligation to do so. And Dinah, the daughter of Leah, which she bore unto Jacob, went out to see the daughters of the land. And when Shechem, the son of Hamor the Hivite, prince of the country, saw her, he took her and lay with her and defiled her. And his soul cleaved unto Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, and he loved the damsel and spoke kindly unto the damsel. And Shechem spoke unto his father Hamor, saying, Get me this damsel to wife. And Hamor, the father of Shechem, went unto Jacob to commune with him. And Hamor communed with him, saying, The soul of my son Shechem longeth for your daughter. I pray you, give her him to wife. And make ye marriages among us, and give your daughters unto us, and take our daughters unto you. And ye shall dwell with us, and the land shall be before you. Dwell and trade therein, and get you possessions therein. And when Shechem, the son of Hamor the Hivite, prince of the country, saw her, he took her and lay with her. In the distance, the women were dancing about the fire, flames leaping into the night between their dark shapes, so that it seemed to Dinah, as she lay in the grass, her head propped up on her hands, to look past Shechem's face, that the women were dancing in the fire, but were not consumed. Moses would descend from Dinah's line. He was to be the son of the daughter of the daughter of the daughter of Asenath, who was to be the daughter of Dinah and Shechem, who had just been conceived. Who had been conceived, who was part of the marriage, whose father had been killed by Shimon and Levi, and all the other men of the Hivite tribe. And that's the story. And in my view, that's the story that has been torturing us for thousands of years. The story for which we have not made amends, and for which we have not mourned. Jamin and I drove north out of Nablus, past Jacob's fountain, which they say never casts a shadow on the summer solstice. It was a blissfully ordinary day. 2 people driving in a car, chatting. We could have been in the south of France, even in Iowa, mildly drawn to the anecdotal, finally exchanging simple stories about our lives, where we'd been born, who our friends had been, how we'd liked and hated school. Occasionally, little pillars of dust before or behind us announced the presence of another car or cart. But for the most part, I felt as if the 2 of us were alone in the universe. I did not feel the need to say anything to Jamin, not even about you, Shechem. He either knew everything or it didn't matter. Now and then he identified a house or a landmark, but mostly we allowed the silence to be about us. Maybe, I thought, after so many years, the gods had granted us this solitude. Jamin told me the names of his other brothers and sisters. There were 6 at the time who were still alive. The youngest one and I had become quite friendly during a film shoot. 2 brothers and 1 sister, he said, were fighting with one branch or another of the PLO. Fighting? I repeated his words. Affiliated, he said. So the day passed. In the late afternoon, we had a large meal, and then just before the light began to fade, Jamin stopped the car by the side of the field so we could walk a little. The sun was going down, a white ball of light. The sunset would not be spectacular. The fields were small, carefully divided, tidy. Then Jamin stepped away from me slightly and with careful expertise slipped between the barbed wire so that he was on one side of the fence and I was on the other. Then he reached out and pulled me to him roughly. The wire was between us, and it pressed painfully into my thighs, and his also, I imagined, and toward the silk blouse I was wearing. He looked at the rip, but not with regret. Silk is rather elegant for such a poor, rough country. A natural fabric, I shrugged. His grip was strong, and the wire did cut into both of us. I saw that and began pulling away. Jamin, come closer, Deena. Jamin. But he silenced me. Don't speak, Deena, and pressed my head against his chest, his fingers firm but tender upon my hair. We stood that way a long time. The sun went down. A breeze came up, as it does at the moment of setting. He released me. There was blood on his shirt. I began to speak again, but he silenced me. He took a few blankets from the car, a small basket, and motioned me up the hill. All he said was, "Careful," as we climbed the hill. "Hold on to me. We'll be able to be alone for the night. It's very peaceful here, and there won't be any tourists until after 10 a.m., though the young boys may very well drive the goats up to pasture after dawn." I reached out toward him, caught his belt behind. His hand reached back, grabbed mine, quickly pulled me to his side, and embraced me to steady me against him. Excuse me. Then coming toward me, Then coming toward us, with the momentum of a large boulder crashing down a mountain, I saw two other beings, equally in the dark, stumbling similarly toward their first meeting. Jameen and I fell on each other. We collapsed on the first bit of grass under an olive tree, didn't even spread out the blanket, but grasped at each other as we sank down desperately. I thought, as we fell down, that they also fell upon us, that history became a single point, and the boundaries of our so separate bodies dissolved. I'm not certain we took off our clothes. Perhaps they also vaporized with our flesh. If only it had been that easy. Jameen threw down the blankets and stood by the tree looking down onto the little bits of light in the fields below us, or up into the sky toward the other lights. I waited a while, and then I came to him, and he turned around and looked at me with his hands on one of the low branches, as if it were holding him up. I suddenly knew he couldn't approach me, and so I stood there, some feet from him, and began to unbutton my blouse. He watched me. I dropped it to the ground. It was cold. Didn't matter. I began to unbutton my skirt. His face was overcome with sadness. Do you know who I am, Deena? It was as if there was a wall between us, a very old wall that was still standing through the centuries, a wall that had managed to withstand every conceivable onslaught and condition and continue standing. I was sure my heart would break. I hoped my heart would break before his broke. I didn't think I would be able to bear that. What fantasies do you have that make you think this is possible? Jameen's voice was kindly. What an old-fashioned word. We stood staring at each other. Inside myself, I was walking toward him over the great distance of thousands of years of wandering and thousands of years of forgetting. Don't you know who I am? I don't know if Jameen had actually spoken those words. I had to turn away from him in my mind. That is, I had to turn away from my own mind, the ridicule of my thoughts, from the insistent skepticism, to plunge through the dark vortex of myself, where the indomitable adversary within, the absolute inability to believe, ruled supreme in order to penetrate the impenetrable wall, beyond which stood a young boy named Shechem. He was 14. A shepherd and a farmer. We had loved each other. Jameen looked into my eyes. I knew that if I walked toward him, a great peace would descend on us. I knew that, and I wanted that peace more than I had ever wanted anything in my life. It was there, waiting. He knew it too. I had to lose my life. I saw you, Shechem, not as I'd been imagining you, because in truth I'd been imagining a man, but I saw the boy. You were so young. I saw this boy, Shechem. I remembered. I wanted to leap forward to embrace you, but I couldn't. Then I knew what it was, what was holding me. I felt them grab me. All my fathers, my own father, and Jacob, and Moses, all of them grabbing at me, hopeless about the ridiculousness of my situation. An American Jewish woman really expecting to have a love affair with a Palestinian Muslim in the middle of a state of siege. They grabbed at me, and I couldn't move. Don't you know who I am? Nor was it you who stopped me then, Shechem. No, it wasn't you. They reached out and they grabbed me. They didn't grab me. They were me. For all my words and actions and love and wanting and hope and vision, Shechem, for all my rage and heresy, for all the centuries they had betrayed me, we were still in one skin. I was still part of them, and therefore they were alive in me. It came to me in terror that if I stepped toward you, if I made the slightest move, it would mean that I would be annihilating them. You and I would become one being, and all the centuries of separateness which had defined us would dissolve. Therefore, they would also dissolve in that moment. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it to them. They were my fathers. I couldn't kill the father. I don't know what words they used to call me to them, to myself. Maybe it wasn't words. All the words I seemed to be listening to did not contain the anguish or the warning I experienced. They forbade me. I understood forbid. Language regained its power, became the thing itself. I was immobilized. If I left, they said, if I walked toward If I walked toward you, it was the same as if I had cast them in the gas chambers, into the showers, into the ovens. I couldn't do it. I saw it all. Everything you were asking. You wanted me to leave them and to walk into your house, into your smells, into your garbage, your bed, your language, your mutterings, your way of waking in the morning, everything odd and unfamiliar and dangerous. That wasn't it. It wasn't that I was going toward everything wretched. That they could have survived. Still, I distracted myself with these small fears, counterpoising them with my great hates. Levi and Shimon, Jacob, who pretended to be innocent, who had not only married but loved Rachel the priestess while betraying her gods, Leah the collaborator, whom I despised, Abraham, who'd been willing, happy to kill his own child, Moses, who brought law and more law and more law, who had cursed his sister, the prophetess, all of them who had destroyed my own gods, cut down the groves, had forbidden my words, my language, my knowledge, all of them. I focused on my rage and the betrayal. Still, they held me, and I couldn't cut them off. If only there were no promise in our joining. If only I didn't believe in the peace which was looming at the end of it, peace and dissolution. You must not, they said, anything but this heresy. In the camps, ovens, showers, defeated, demoralized, destroyed. Still they had become stronger in their destruction. They had found their own faces. They had never lost sight of who they were. My own father, my very own father, forbid me. I loved him, Shechem, I loved him. You stood there, unmoving. I don't know what you knew or what you saw. Hello, Deena. Don't you remember? Don't you know who I am? It's been so long since I've seen you. It seems like centuries. Didn't I remember? Didn't I remember that peace in the beginning? Then I saw it all. The two of them, as they had been together from the beginning, coming apart and joining, the rhythm of the breath and of sex and of seasons. It was like waves in the sea of wheat, the coming apart, the joining. Sometimes they were one, and sometimes they were separate, but it was one and the same. They were not divided from each other. They were one and the same. Then, as I watched, I saw the universe sundered, wrenched apart, grinding and grieving, a division more terrible than death. The world broken in two, forever, without any possibility of joining, as if half the world had been ripped from itself and banished. I couldn't say anything. I looked into your eyes again, and then I began. I didn't know how to do it, but I began to flay my skin from my body, not to remove my clothes alone, but the clothes of the body itself. As I tore my skins from me, my eyes held by your eyes, you didn't move. You were infinitely patient. I thought I heard you speak. Your lips didn't move. Both your arms were up, holding on to the branches. You said, this is the real moment, the real story. To step into the understanding of this moment, into its very heart, you have to pierce through your beliefs and your history and your loved ones and everything familiar until they do not hold you in any way. And when you are that naked, you will remember that we are lovers. You will come to me as if you're going to Shechem, as if you are Dinah, now for the second time. We are not two people coming together in the flesh, but history, the entire past, coming together and altering. You must be willing to do this, to alter the past, even at the risk of erasing it. Then, them, you, me, because the moment we come together, we inevitably erase everything that has come before, everything that has prevented our joining for centuries. There will be peace. Are you brave enough? I began. I tore my fathers from me, and Jacob from me, and Leah from me, and all my brothers, even Levi and Shimon, and I tore the desert from me, and Sinai, and the tablets, and all of history, skin after skin. I stripped myself until I was completely flayed. I was clean, even of the camp, Shechem. yours and also mine, all our massacres, and clean even of my father. I cannot describe the pain. Such pain. Then, Shem, what was so hard, I tore Joseph from me, even Joseph. You left me nothing. Joseph, whose hands covered me again and again, who had held me in 2 lifetimes so tenderly, so protectively, who had fathered Asinath, our child, who had given me everything, who was like my own, my brother, my own body. I loved him so much, I tore him from me with my own nails, digging into our flesh. Then there was nothing left of me. I walked toward me. I walked towards you. You took me in your arms. You were weeping. That's when we fell down, and they fell into us. That's when we fell into ourselves. At the end of the novel, Dinah asks Shechem, why isn't there peace yet? That's the question we must all ask, and for which we are all responsible. Thank you.
Deep breath. Wow. Deena drove up on Friday, and on Friday afternoon while she was on her way, I started going through these books, and I took out What Dinah Thought, which had been on my shelf since 1989, and I was a new student with her when I first read it. And my sister married a Palestinian man, and I have therefore, without any choice on my part, have this story in my family, and nieces and nephews who are beloved to me, who are half Palestinian. This was the first book that taught me about it, though. They were not the ones to teach me about it at first. This book was the beginning for me of learning about my sister's story. And so I opened it back up. I haven't looked at it in 20 years, and I get to the couple of little quick passages, and I'm so excited about them that as soon as Deena gets in the house and she's, whatever, she's gotten a little something to eat, and we sit down, I said, Deena, I have to read this to you. It's her own writing, her own book. I could not. And it was the bit about the fathers, like how do you ever become who you're going to become except let the fathers go. But you can't do it because, oh my God, that's going to betray the fathers. And yet it's the only way to do it. I've never seen it done so beautifully. That was not, I had to do it, a different kind of story, but right, I remember when it was time for me to love a woman. And when I betray all those ancestors who thought this was the worst thing in the world or not, right? So we're all standing in these kinds of stories. And yet, when you do it, I'm more Irish than ever. Like, you become more who you're going to be. Anyway, sorry. It's just too beautiful. Plus, I'm giving you guys a break, so you're giving Deena a little bit of a break. I forgot to say that Deena is the author of so many books, most of you know. Many books of poetry, novels, essays. She is a writer about healing and one of the more radical thinkers on the planet, really. And when I sent out a little essay recently about first meeting her, many people kept writing me back saying, I remember when I first met Deena, and they would tell me their stories, because she's one of those sparks in the world, So we're with one of those sparks. So now we get to hear a little bit from La Vieja, a journal of fire, published in 2022, correct?
I think so.
Written during the pandemic. And I have a little anti-feeling about this book because she and I were sitting out in my garden and we're saying, well, what's next? She had just finished A Reign of Nightbirds. And I say, well, what's next for you? And she says, well, I don't know, there's like a woman out in a fire lookout or something. And then she goes, and it seems to me there's a stone carver in there. And I say, could you just write for 20 minutes about that, please? Anyway, so that was, something was getting born in that moment, and I am so happy to welcome Deena back to read from La Vieja, A Journal of Fire.
Thank you. It's very possible that the book would never have come to be if not for that moment with Carolyn. You know, because it just wasn't, and then she made me write these words, and they were really terrible. But they were on the page, and there it was. So, La Vieja, technically that means the old woman, but we can't translate it into English because English isn't a language that has the kind of respect that is contained in La Vieja. And when you call someone La Vieja or El Viejo, you are talking about an elder. You're talking about the grandmother. You're talking about Hostin. Other languages, other cultures understand that. So it was quite something to have La Vieja appear. It was like, and I guess this is what always happens to me. A book appears and I have to write it. I'm also so grateful because otherwise I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. But there it is. When La Vieja appeared, she didn't knock on the door, you understand. The distinct consciousness from which someone like La Vieja could emerge entered my sphere with her, neither invited nor resisted. Not only into my room, but into my mind, which rearranged itself to accept her perceptions. It accessed me smoothly as fjords, green and blue, intertwine as they merge, descending toward the sea. Although I had been entirely autonomous, well, at least since the previous novel, I was once again reeling with the onslaught of a unique intelligence and perspective that promised to disrupt the familiar landscape of my own life, and I anticipated the enormous task of incorporating and integrating her perspective. She didn't want to tell me her story. She had no interest, zero interest, in telling me anything of her past or even her present. What she wants is for me, for us, to know where she was going, why she must be there, and for me to bear witness and transmit it. You know, in some ways, she's like a spirit. Maybe that is true of every character who inhabits a writer. For me, the writer, to transmit to you, the reader, the very essence of a character, I have to embody her and allow myself to be formed around what is most essential. She was going to a place. That is what I understand. And happily I did, in an instance of clarity like fierce light breaking through parting storm clouds. She was going to the forest, to the woods, to land. And in that moment, without saying more, emphasized that our natural abodes, our biologic locations, are as critical as any social construction. Whatever story was going to emerge could only happen there. This story happened there and could not have happened elsewhere. The same for the origin of characters, by that bend in the river, by that sycamore, no, juniper, at the time of day when the midsummer light streaming towards sunset slanted just so through the pinon branches, when the cones were ready to give up their seeds and the bears were approaching in the center of a storm. Place is alive and specific and communicates outside of language. The imagination yearns for substantiality. Indeed, I didn't always know this about place and time. I assumed human culture formed us. I didn't know it was Earth. Hidden in the forest is another sovereign nation, or other sovereign nations, peoples governed by and living according to the laws of the natural world, which are intrinsic, not external to them. They do not speak the way we do, nor do they communicate the way we do. It seems like they live in the same physical world as we humans do, but they may not. It's the next day, or it's the next year, or it is the continuous present now of eternity, nanosecond time, all at once. La Vieja has learned how to live here entirely alone and isolated in time, to be formally engaged in the summer ritual of scanning the horizon, 360 degrees, and reporting it to the Forest Service. Every fire lookout has been reinstated. There were 53,000 lightning strikes in August 2020 and 1,600 in the last 24 hours. 500 fires were torched and over 1 million acres burning. Some of the lightning storms are created by the intensity of the fires, and some fires have the potentials of becoming firenadoes, the heat and smoke rising up and twisting into a chaotic storm. Some fires are so intense that they create their own thunderstorms with lightning and wind, but no rain. She is so different a person than the one who first came here. This way is becoming natural, without being able to anticipate how it would be to become other. She is another being, if not yet fully formed or acquainted with herself. She expected, no intended, to strip down, to be stripped down. Still, she also expected to be somewhat the same afterwards, familiar, newly born in some way, but essentially identical to how she had begun, her nature intact. But that's not the case. There has been an essential alteration over these 3 years, not simply a return to a primary state. What is it, she asks herself. What is it? Then she feels what it is. She no longer has will. That intrinsic definitive quality which animates humans as she knows her own species, which has directed every action of her life, from turning in her bed to moving to this lookout, is not operative now. Under some direction, with some motivation, she leaves the cabin and is moving towards the woods, as she has done every day since the bear indicated he was aware of her presence, walking each day as if summoned, but only a foot or two further than the day before, and remaining there entirely open and without interpretation until released, blank and attentive. Can the two coexist? Vague comprehension developed, but again, without will and outside of language, absent of the particular indications of her humanity. What was arising in her was like a change in humidity, or a subtle but continuous change in barometric pressure, sensed, not measured. A shift in atmosphere, as if breathing water, not air. Yes, exactly, as if negotiating the sea and everything that it requires from 20 fathoms below instead of walking on land. She felt herself breathing in the oxygen of a field of awareness. In order to truly participate, she had had to relinquish will and so agency. Even the agency to relinquish her will, even the will to relinquish agency, even the agency to respond. La Vieja's ankle twisted slightly, not enough to do injury, but sufficiently to realize she had been moving forward thoughtlessly, without having developed the keen global awareness of the others, and so had tripped over a stone. She needed to stop, and so she did. She saw she was significantly closer to the edge of the trees. Her shadow would reach it soon if she persisted, but persistence was not the mood. Maybe standing still was sufficient if she could allow the earth to move under her as it spun on its axis while traveling the celestial highway, the moon in tow, around the immobile sun. She felt an irresistible force urging her forward. She did not want to invade a territory that is not hers. Occupying a very small area, not taking up much room, had become an essential principle of hers. Her cabin is not much larger than a den or a cave where a bear might stretch out with 2 yearlings and 2 newborns. She hadn't wanted to acquire more territory than she absolutely needed, and this path she had walked, which is inevitably marked with her scent, is narrow. Repetition has described and limited it, but now she was compelled to extend it, and resistance was inappropriate. She moved forward 1 step, and minutes later, another. This repeated over several days. The same scenario repeated 1 step further each day, and repeated. She reached the ecotone between the brush and the trees, between the bear's territory and her own. No man's land. Exactly, she thought. She stood very, very still and let an authentic smile on her face actively erase all fear that might have arisen. It was inevitable. She had known this would eventually be the outcome. When it occurred, it would be now. There he was. She stopped. Over time, she had developed the ability to be entirely still. Her heartbeat, her breath came and went. The essential movements continued, but otherwise, she was entirely still. He had come to this place to meet her here. He had determined the place and the time. Her intention was simply to accommodate, as some animals are able to do, to submit to him entirely. There he was. She knew the drill. She had taught the occasional visitors to the forest who inquired at her lookout how to deport themselves if they met a bear. First, do what seems impossible. Dispense all fear. Calm yourself. Feel kindly and move backwards slowly. Make no gesture that can be interpreted as aggression or hostility. Smile, if possible. Smile anyway. Make yourself large. Move. Move away. Move away. She could not. She could not move away. She could dispense fear and smile. She could feel kindly. What she couldn't do was move. She was not paralyzed with fear, but she was held by his presence and his gaze. This was not a chance meeting, and he was not alarmed by her presence. Quite the opposite. He had brought her here one step at a time, day after day, with the magnetic power of his presence and his intent. She had relinquished will as he had acquired agency. Trust, she instructed herself. It required overcoming a lifetime, if not centuries, of conditioning and the training she had received. Despite the last years, despite her daily walks, trusting a bear, a wild animal, was difficult, was challenging, was inconceivable. But life required it. Trusting bear could become easy, but trusting herself was not. Would she find the right gestures and responses, the ones she began to understand? He was counting on her to extend beyond herself to him. He moved closer to her. It wasn't that she held her ground, but that she was captivated and without desire to free herself, rather wanting to be bent even more to his will so that her mind would be imprinted and altered. There was a gesture to be made of her willingness to comply with his patient invitation. She could move backwards if she really tried, but she was not certain it was the right approach. She looked directly at him, taking in his enormous size, 6 feet, she guessed, if he was standing, 500 pounds or more. Yet, as he was on his fours and she was standing, she was somewhat taller than he. That was not right. His eyes were intense, his gaze penetrating, assessing. He wanted to know what she would do, having tracked him all these months, his dark nostrils extending from the pink furless trapezoid surrounding them, and his mouth almost like the barrel of a gun. That is, they confronted her. She saw by his expression that he could read her most intimate internal adjustments. There was nothing that eluded him, despite what eluded her. She acted against all official instructions. She locked eyes with him, trusting that he would see that as an act of submission, not aggression. But first, she dropped to her knees. Increasingly, lacking the strength to hold herself up, she let herself collapse, her head finally on the ground. But instead of feeling defeat, she discovered she was unusually sensitive to the particular quality of the dirt, the individual pine and fir needles that her forehead rested against, the snap of some dry leaves, the sense of decay or transformation over the last 100 or 500 years, the fall of this year's foliage, and the animals that had crossed. Bobcat, turkey, then an amalgam of feathers, urine, scat, dew, haws, all of it. This also startled her. Everything startled her. She raised her head. At first she had looked in his eyes as an act of daring, but now she needed to hold on to something, and they were the only support she could find. Unexpectedly, VIEJA remembered Leonie's dream, the way she had scuttled over to the bear seated around the fire in a circle, the little girl joining them, then leaning against the bear. The dream took on another quality as the notion of property that it had been Leonie's dream dissolved, and it emerged as a place and event that she could enter. His proximity began to feel comforting, as it had to Leonie, and she inclined forward toward him so very subtly it was almost imperceptible, and yet she could feel an internal shift. The ever so slight hesitance, avoidance had dissipated, replaced by attraction, and attraction was motivated by safety. So much in the world was dangerous, but he wasn't dangerous. He was refuge. Nothing else was required to allow everything. She wanted to weep for the relief of it. Distrust and ordinary sentry, conscripted by history to a kind of serfdom, had accompanied her everywhere, particularly alert at the sharpest boundary line between the civilized and the wild. It had meant there would always be a standoff, no matter what she pretended to anyone, to herself. And now, VIEJA spoke aloud, though of course the bear couldn't understand. Of course he did. She knew she didn't have the ability to communicate precisely in any other way but human language, and had no history from which to accept that he did indeed understand her because of his developed skills of interpretation and not her choice of words. All these thoughts were both her attempts to reciprocate, to meet him in ways that admitted he had reached her, as limited as her understanding had been, her inability to communicate to a non-human was even greater. But finally, she found some words and stammered hoarsely, "This is kinship, isn't it?" Her voice startled her, and she hoped it hadn't startled him. He wasn't startled. She had no capacity left to hold herself as other to him in order to maintain the hierarchy that he had shattered as if he had swung at her with his paw, which could have killed her with one blow. Kinship, Papa Bear. Papa Bear. What else was she going to call him?
Right on, sister. Listening to that, there are these two books, different topics, different eras, same story. Yeah. Crazy. Incredible to see.
For the first time I heard
You
that.
saw it too.
I heard it.
Exactly.
I said, wait a second, I just read that.
Exactly. Except Deena has moved to this other place which is the big story, which is, right? How do we move not only out of our human differentiations, but our species differentiations and our separateness? Yes, hold on just a minute, because we are going to have Q&A, so you're first. So we're in the mystery, and we're held in a bigger story, and I remember when I turned the page, because you turn the page and a whole page is this bear in her book. And I remember when I did that, and I literally gasped. The bear is so alive. She's done something amazing in La VIEJA. So we do have a few minutes for Q&A, and there's a microphone there, and you're first. There's a microphone there, please. Are you willing?
What strikes me about the two coming together, the two books, is exactly what you said yesterday in the ethics, and that is no enemy. That both of these are about creating the coming together of no enemy, both within and without.
The no enemy way. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's not a question.
Thank you.
It was just what hit me.
Good.
Thank you.
Good.
And I was happy to hear you yesterday say that.
Thank you.
Please don't be shy. Come on up. And just a reminder to all of us that we will be brief so we can, hear as many people.
Thank you. We are really in the presence of La VIEJA. I feel it.
Yes, we are.
So after hearing you, Deena, yesterday, I went back into my bookshelf and spent some time with your poems with Pablo Neruda, going to him to find out if a woman could be a poet and what has come from that in your life all these years. So I just wanted to share this line. This is Deena. When I was not yet 24, I followed Pablo Neruda, the world's greatest poet, into his house. He said, a woman rarely becomes a poet because the fathers tell her to keep her body closed, and the mothers agree. So there's the theme, theme. And then I had this years ago written out after meeting you 35 years ago. I want to say, do you know who I am? I don't know who I am. I don't know who I am. So Pablo Neruda wanted to say to you, a poet is a fact of nature, is relentless. And these are the words that I wrote out years ago, that Pablo Neruda told you and you wrote for all of us. She was born to the wrong mother. Had a wolf raised her, she would be writing songs, writing poems, writing stories to break el corazón de la montaña. She would be writing stories, poems to break the heart of the mountains, of the mountain. Yeah, thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Any questions for Deena? Oh, I called her Deena. Or thoughts or anything anyone wanted to share? Charlotte Kelly, you need to know that when she first met Deena, it was at your camp, just letting you know. All those years ago, yes.
Well, I'll ask a question. Deena, I'd like to know, how is it that we live with sadness, the kind of sadness, grief, and loss that we feel right now? Do you have any ideas about how we can cope with the sadness? Not that we don't know how to take care of ourselves and stuff like that, but to just deal with that sense of loss and grief.
I think sadness is an intelligence. I don't think we should get rid of it. I think we need to study what it's telling us. And I think the sadness and the grief is because we know that we're not living in the right way. And if we didn't feel sad, we would be even worse than we are, which is unimaginable. Right? So, grief, of course, but also wonder. You know, the other side of grief is what you're grieved about. You're grieved about something that's possible, that you also know in some way. And that is what you need to know as well. Yeah. Right? And you know this, Kat. Indeed, you know this. You know this with the animals. You know their sorrow, and you know your great love and their joy and beauty. So there it is. Oh. Yeah. Yeah, we feel sorry for ourselves. It's ridiculous.
Any last thoughts?
Okay, so when she lies down in the bear, and then she's there with the bear, we've forgotten how to do that. How do we begin to remember?
How do we?
How do we begin to remember?
How to do that.
How to do
lay
that?
down with the
How
bear.
did you do that? Well, so you're a poet.
Yeah.
So when you write something, you're there, right?
Yeah.
And so you're just there, and you do it, and then you look at what you did, and you write it down.
Okay. So you just do the gifts that you have.
You have to do it in your body, mind, soul.
That's what we do.
You have.
That's what we can do. There we go. Okay?
What's that?
I'm not, it's distorted. I'm not making.
No, we can hear you.
I can hear you.
Yeah.
No, but I didn't hear her.
Oh, sorry, Jean, would you say that again?
I don't know what I said. What I said was I'm connecting with what you're saying, in that the gifts that we have, offer them, and then we're together, everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also heard the idea that when we're really writing, we're laying down with the wild.
That makes sense to me. Yeah. You're elsewhere. You know, there's no sense in writing what you think is the ordinary. I mean, writing something else, what's imagined, what's possible, the wonder, the wild, the uncivilized. What a relief.
There's our new anthem.
Hi, Deena.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being here today. I was so blessed to be able to come to your workshop that you did years ago at Cabrillo College in the horticulture building, and have that day with you. And it inspired me to just risk, to jump into the void, to open myself up to the vulnerability of being in front of the blank page, the unlined page, no structure, offering up a prayer that something will come from the muse, from elsewhere, the goddess, my beloved's inspiration in whatever moment it may be, and from my very own heart and soul. And I'm most grateful to you. And
Looks like it works.
it
That's what it
works.
sounds like.
It's happening. It's continuing, and I never know. You know, that's the mystery, and it's one that I fully accept, you know, because I have no other choice.
Right, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, yeah. You never know. You never know, yeah.
And I think we have Carolyn over here. Hi, sweetheart.
Well, that was interesting, having to stand there and look at this audience, and you realize we're in good hands.
Yeah.
So many years ago, and thank you for being born and choosing to be born and letting whatever is boiling up in you boil up and steam out over. And I asked you, well, how? And you went, when I was young, I wore high heels and smoked cigarettes. I'm like, what? Thank you. And I was thinking about whatever it is we do, it doesn't matter as long as we bring our whole self to it, our whole presence to every interaction, small, big, with trees, with the worms, with a homeless person on the street, to nourish. And you open the door for that with all the sea of words that you have gifted us with.
I'm not sure that it's about bringing our whole self to it. I think it's about listening to the other voices.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
And I think that's what you mean.
Yeah. When I
And-
say self, I meant I'm here to
Yeah.
listen.
Presence in a way.
Presence,
Presence.
absolute presence.
Yeah.
That's it. Thank you.
And the
That's why
presence,
you're there.
The presence is a vitality and a wisdom, and it's, but it's real.
Yeah.
And it's wise, and benevolent, ultimately.
What was the last thing you said? It's what? And
Benevolent,
what was the thing before that?
wise.
Wise, sorry.
Yeah, wise. Yeah.
The other thing I'm really taking from listening to you today, Deena, is the idea of Carolyn talking about, how we bring presence to every moment, the person on the street, the leaf we're just looking at. And you're talking about emptying oneself of self in order to do that or get deeper at it. A lifelong journey, right?
Yeah.
But I've watched you do it. I've watched you do it. So you've been a great teacher for me, obviously, but on this too. Great. One more question. This is the last one.
I'm just thinking about history. And what really moved me about what Deena thought is that really, in order to move forward in whatever this is that we're all living through, is that letting go of history, and whether it's our relationship with our kin of this planet, or whether it's the history of our ancestors that have been warmongers for as long as humans have been on this planet. Somehow, we have to be willing to let go of all that in order to even remotely step into what's possible. Because that history will always stop us, right? It will always pull us back. So I was very taken by how they are the same story.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's so interesting how the ancestors absolutely sustain us, and they can also be exactly what's holding us back, kind of all at the same time. Yeah. But you articulated beautifully.
Well, I think you really have to want peace more than you want anything else. I mean, it has to be a longing and a need for the world that can't be interfered with in any way. And you can't think about yourself. I mean, you really do dissolve in that longing and that determination to do whatever you can for that peace, beauty, you know the words, love, But it's so not personal. And you have to be willing to love in that way. And disappear yourself in it. And we have to do that now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's... We've never been in such terrible circumstances, ever, in this country and in the world. And saying you don't know what to do is the most irrelevant thing possible. You have to be something else that doesn't allow this to continue. And you have to love the possibility that we can transform it entirely. And, for me, the words that work are reversing extinction. I don't know how we can allow ourselves to be a species that creates extinction. Can't do that. So we do something else. Restore the world. Make peace. Make beauty. Devote yourself. Thank you. Thank you for coming.